So we're 2 games into the second round, and it's looking pretty good for the first two. The third, less so. But we'll get to that third game later on tonight. We'll see if things turn around. But 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as Meatloaf once sang, right? So the Boston Bruins and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Boston came out looking pretty solid in this, although I thought the announcers were giving Bruins too much credit. Jim Houston sometimes does this, where he talks a lot about that perfection line, and just stop saying that. Stop it. Every time he says it, I say, don't call it that. So Richie was in for the Bruins, and 29 seconds in, Chara takes a penalty. The Bruins are in the box. The Bolts go to the power play, and I'm thinking, that's not an ideal start. Even though Tampa's power play was, I think, 1 for 10 against Columbus in the last round, not an ideal start. One shot on the power play, solid penalty kill for the Bruins. The shots were 7-5 for Boston, 7.5 minutes in. They had plenty of chances, good chances, and they were playing well. The top line getting chances for Bruins, but Vasilevsky making the saves. I thought Vasi had a good game tonight. Sergachev then takes a penalty. The Bruins go to the power play. Better power play than Tampa's, but they don't score either. So, when you're looking at it and going, well, that's a pretty good power play. Yeah, but if you don't score, it's not really... Did it really change that much? So, the Bolts and Bruins, I thought, both needed to watch out for turnovers. It's something I've seen early in the Vancouver-Vegas game tonight, where Vancouver's really got to watch that puck. But, yeah, for both Tampa and Boston, because of the counterattacks these teams can do, they're going to have to really cut down their turnovers in this series. Vasilevsky denied Kasha, but with 1:08 left, it's Coyle from Carlo and Marchand. And it's 1-0 Boston. And the interesting thing is, Boston had played a very good first period, but I thought, if Tampa escapes with this thing being tied, that's really kind of cool. Because then the second period, we see if the momentum shifts, and it's a scoreless tie and all that, but Boston comes out with a lead. Second period, early sloppy shift for both lines. Both top lines, I should say, where they were against each other, but they couldn't get passes through and nothing was working for them. Hedman takes a penalty. The Bruins go to the power play. Vasilevsky stopped Krug. It was a really good power play, and then it would score. Pastrnak scores from Krejci and Krug at 4:34. That is a power play goal. And for Pastrnak, it's important to see him score because, as I mentioned when I was doing the series preview, he only had 1 goal in the 5 games he'd played. Now he has 2 in 6. And if he starts to heat up, Boston chances get better. The Bruins were pressing after that goal, but Bergeron would take a penalty to kind of kill that momentum. The Bolts take a power play. And it is unusual for Bergeron to be the one that hurts Boston's momentum, but here we are. It's 2020, so you can just write it off as 2020. Shattenkirk almost got one as the first penalty kill power play wasn't very good, but the second power play was for Tampa. They had 2 shots on it, but the shot blocks were definitely helping, including Chara blocking one that I think went off his wrist. He was definitely favoring that wrist for a while, but he'd be okay. Crossbar then for Coleman. And if that had gone in, you'd have a completely different game, but it doesn't. The Bolts pressed at 9 minutes. Victor Edmond having a very good game, and I'm mentioning that here. Important I'm mentioning that here. High stick caused the Bolts goal to be waved off. They did try to argue it. John Cooper never challenged it because it was clearly a high stick, plays it down, and then a Tampa Bay player puts it in, and there was never a change in possession in between. So, yeah, it's not a goal. Tampa players on the ice weren't happy, but John Cooper didn't challenge because he knew that wasn't going to change. Then Vasilevsky denied McAvoy. Tampa had a fast break that was denied by Halak. Halak had a very good game as well. We talked a lot when Rask left the bubble, and I remember seeing a lot of people saying, well, Boston's out now. And I thought, haven't you guys watched Halak? Like, this is not a huge deal breaker for Boston that you go from Rask to Halak. Halak's had a very good record as well. So, Bruins' chances were set aside at 12 minutes and 15 seconds, and there was a scrum after that. And these teams, there was a lot of that starting to take effect. And I would think that as this series goes along, we will see more and more of that. These teams do not like one another. These teams are very familiar with one another. As the games get more and more important and more tense, I would expect more scrums, and maybe we'll see a fight or two. It is possible we'll see a playoff fight. It's rare, but it's possible. Maroon then tried for a wraparound that was stopped. Wagner takes a penalty. Tampa goes back to the power play. I was getting kind of concerned because the power plays kept getting better. Halak stopped Hedman. Solid power play. It gets 2 shots again. Again, we get Boston shot blocking, trying to break up passes, and just trying to keep them to the outside. But in general, Tampa had a much better period than the first. Killorn takes a penalty. The Bruins go back to the power play. Chernak took a puck to the head. It went off of his helmet. He was okay. He'd stay in the game. And it was an excellent penalty kill for Tampa in a period that they win on the shots. And they win for puck control. And about halfway through this period, Jim Houston says, well, Halak hasn't been the busier of the 2 goalies, but he's played pretty well. And I'm thinking, actually, the shots are now in favor of Tampa. What are you talking about? So we go to the third period, and early in the third period, seemingly, to me, it felt like it was against the flow of the play. Marchand gets the third goal for Boston from Pastrnak and Bergeron at 1:18. I'm not calling the line that. That's not a thing. That's what Houston calls them, and Jack Edwards calls them, and NBC likely calls them too. I don't call them that. I call it the Bergeron line. I leave it at that. It's just crazy. Coyle then picked off a Bolts pass, really dangerous chance. If that had gone in, it would have been just over. That would have made it 4-0, and there's no tension left in the game. But it didn't go in, so there's still tension left in the game. Things get kind of scrummy at 2 minutes and 49 seconds. There's a 4-on-4. Opened up. Definitely there were some chances both ways with the 4-on-4. Clifton had a shot that was deflected wide 5 minutes in. Tampa was at 0 shots 8.5 minutes into the period. But we've seen a lot of times, and tonight in the Vancouver-Vegas game, we saw Vancouver go without a shot for over 8 minutes. This is how things are working in these games where there's long periods of time where a goaltender faces no shots. That first shot, it goes in and deflected off of McAvoy. So Hedman gets the goal from point and Palat at 8:50, and I didn't think it was a great goal. Yes, it deflected, but I didn't think Halak's positioning was particularly strong on that. So again, we're stuck in a game where Boston's up, but the goal that's gone in on Halak I'm not overly happy with. So, right? Tampa pushed. They had control after that goal, and at 12 minutes, they had a ton of pressure that went right for like a minute and a half. The Bruins were definitely reeling, though they had the 2-goal lead. And it kind of felt like they were sitting on that lead. I don't like it when teams do that. It doesn't make me happy. Marchand had a chance that missed with 3 minutes left. They pulled the goalie with 2 minutes and 29 seconds left. I'm thinking, okay, so as long as they don't start missing empty nets, which they did, they iced the puck with 1:39 left. I get less nervous when Boston does this than when other teams do this, but still, you don't want to see a bunch of icings. You don't want to see this situation against a Tampa Bay team that feels like they're a little tougher than last year's Tampa Bay team that got swept in round 1. Hedman would score at 18:46, and that goal deflected in off McAvoy as well. This time, in this instance, Halak, there was no chance for him to save it because of the deflection off McAvoy. This is where somewhere Carey Price is at home saying, well, at least I'm not the only goalie that's been having this problem. And for McAvoy, it's a rough night for him. He actually played pretty well. He doesn't get on the score sheet, but the 2 goals that go in his own net, they deflected off of him, and he's kind of got to sort of own that. And then Boston manages to hold on. So despite a lot of pressure by Tampa Bay, and there was a ton right up until the whistle, or the horn to end the game, Boston holds on. They win game 1 3-2. They're up 1-0 on Tampa Bay, and it kind of felt like they got away with one tonight, where maybe if the hockey gods were nicer, Tampa probably would have won this. The shots were 15-10 Boston in the first, 18-7 for Tampa in the second. Both teams had 9 shots in the third. Final shots 37-31 in favor of Tampa. The hits were 39-37 in favor of Tampa, so they out-hit and outshot Boston. The power plays, Boston 1 for 3, Tampa 0 for 3, and that is your storyline. Boston's power play scored, Tampa's didn't, and that's an issue, and Tampa's got to work on that. Halak, 35 saves on 37 shots, played fantastic. Vasilevsky, 28 saves on 31 shots. Yeah, I know I didn't like that first goal on Halak, but he was fantastic in that second period. He's the reason why Boston emerges from that period up 2-0. The 3 stars in this game, Pastrnak, Hedman, and Marchand. So Hedman rightfully is the second star. I might have thought about giving Halak the third star personally if I had a choice in it, but Marchand makes some sense. He gets the game-winning goal. He gets an assist. And for Boston, they look pretty good tonight. So they're up 1-0. And now for Tampa, if they're going to knock out Boston, they got to win 4 out of 6. Can they do it? We'll see. Let me know your thoughts regarding this game in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and now I got to go watch period number 2 between Vancouver and Vegas. And we'll see how I feel by the end of tonight. Again, it looks to me like it may not be the happiest night for me, but you know what? Vancouver, like I have said, playing with house money. And Boston, now they've got the pressure squarely on Tampa. They have to win game 2. So we will see that game on Tuesday. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.